Welcome back to the county seat. We are on the topic of insurance coverage for inmates, and this has been a trying couple of weeks for our guest, Reed Richards, who is a Weber County attorney and also represents the Utah Sheriff's Association, and Sheriff Jim Winter from Salt Lake County. Thank you for joining us today on the county seat. How is the Capitol this week?
Well, it's the Capitol, but I think we're doing fine and getting some good work done. So that's to say enjoyable is probably a little over.
Yeah, you probably a little bit of a disappointment that the bill didn't take traction this particular go through.
From my standpoint, it really is. It's an effort that the Sheriff's Association and also others in law enforcement have been, I think, fairly passionate about and believe it makes a lot of sense. We understand the arguments on the other side of the coin, but we think that it has some significant benefits to the taxpayers. And so I think we're going to continue pushing in the future and see if we can't get this issue resolved.
When we were doing the story, we made reference to the costs, and not only information that you had given us, but I think it was a monthly figure if I remember correctly, but also information that came from Sheriff Park out in Tooele County. And just before we went on, you've got a figure in there of what this coverage or what health care costs.
I do, and I mean, I don't know if the taxpayers of the state recognize that when an individual comes into their jail, whatever county it is, whatever insurance coverage they had prior to walking in that door, it is now gone, and they bear the entire cost of that. And in Salt Lake County in fiscal year 2010, that number was $6,937,000.
Just in the county?
That's in Salt Lake County alone. We spent, just again to put it in perspective, in pharmaceuticals alone, $1,257,000. This is not a small or insignificant issue as it relates to public safety.
Okay, we to be fair, we had invited the representatives from the insurance industry who are on the other side of this issue, and you know, Bill prevailed this year to attend today, but there was nobody within the industry that either had authority, permission, or desire to be here. But we did have a chance to talk with them, so from time to time we'll be injecting their points of view into this argument. And so I think, Reed, what I would like to do is talk about the hypothesis that they started with as their major premise, saying that one, it's not fair for insurers and insurance companies to pay for health care once somebody enters the county jail, and we're trying to keep this clearly defined to jails, because their hypothesis is that health care costs are higher in jail, but they don't really have any research to back it up. So they have a hypothesis that say it is more expensive. What is your hypothesis?
Well, backing up just a minute, I'm not the county attorney in Weber County. I'm with the county
attorney's office.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Don't want to lead anybody astray.
Yeah,
he should be.
The issue, I think, is interesting. If you're insuring somebody on the outside of the jail, you're insuring them in all of the activities they're involved in. Their athletic events, their ball games, their mountain climbing, their skiing. If they're in the jail, the chances for injury are pretty slim. So I think that hypothesis is exactly opposite of reality.
I'd just interject too, the bill is specifically structured, as he said, the risk level. People would say, well, that's not accurate. There's risks in jail inherent. Unfortunately, there are those that try to harm themselves or those that might be harmed by others. The bill specifically excluded those from this bill. So we were talking about essentially pre-existing or
treatment that they were already under.
Correct.
Now you brought up an interesting point, is that the way that the county jails operate is that basically, I guess for lack of a better word, subsistence. You cover health care at the lowest possible standard, both in mental health and physical health, just to maintain them. And that creates, quite often creates a discrepancy because their families come in and say, what's going on?
Well, exactly, and I want to be very clear. When we say the lowest level, I mean, that to me sounds a little pejorative in that, I mean, there are, in the Salt Lake County Jail perspective, and you know, we are nationally accredited with major corrections healthcare industries and have been receiving awards for the past few years, and I think we're very progressive. But the bottom line is we also recognize a fiduciary responsibility to our constituents, and that is that when people come in, we want to make sure that they're safe. We want to make sure that they are not in pain, and we want to make sure that they are maintained in a healthy status. But we are not in the business of providing extra level of care. Therapeutic level is really, I think, the term that best describes that. And, mental illness is a classic example. These very tragic situations where people are out in the world, they go off of their medications, or they have a mental illness episode. Oftentimes they're compensating in the outside world with drugs and alcohol. So by the time we get them, they're in a pretty rough state. When we get them, we stabilize them. But again, our job is to stabilize them so they can manage their own defense and be safe within the population. But we are not improving their health so that when they go out, they could be in a much better state. Our argument, I think, is that if we did, for those that did have insurance, we could, in fact, maintain them at the level they were enjoying on the outside. From my standpoint, that's actually a savings to society and to the insurance companies, because there's not this discontinuation of what should be a regular therapeutic treatment. But the jails, we're not in the business of curing. We're in the business of maintaining.
When I was in conversation with people from the insurance industry, they kept coming back to the fact that if this bill were to pass, it would shift the burden of incarceration from all citizens, and they primarily kept going back to saying that it would shift it disproportionately to small business owners, because they're the ones that buy the health insurance for their employees, and they kept going back to that argument. What do you have to say to that statement?
Well, there are two parts to that question. First, are you shifting it? Who are you shifting it to? It's their medical care. Should it be paid for by the taxpayer or by their own insurance that they've paid for? It seems pretty clear to me that it shouldn't be a taxpayer responsibility. I don't know where the small business tie comes in, because most of these folks are going to be covered by insurance companies, whether it's purchased by a small business or a large business, and the insurance company is not a small business. They're big operations.
I asked him about that. I said, how come small business? And he said, well, large companies can self-insure, and there's according to them, a federal mandate that does not require them to live up to state mandates and laws, specifically if they're providing internally their own insurance. That's how it was explained to me. How correct that is, I don't know. So therefore, he said, big businesses don't have to participate in this if the bill were passed.
Well, big companies that I'm aware of provide the same type of insurance. Blue Cross, IHC insurance, that's the insurance we see.
Yeah, we're in Salt Lake County, as an example, we are one of the largest employers with over 6,000 employees, and we utilize PEHP. Even though we are quote-unquote self-insured in some other areas from a liability perspective and so on. From a health insurance, I don't know who can afford to have a self-insured medical pool.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, and the question that is nagging on me personally is about personal responsibility. And this is an issue that I threw out to the people I talked to in the insurance industry, and is that, if you commit the crime and all of a sudden you're rewarded for that because your incarceration picks up the bill for insurance that you otherwise have, and you're still paying the premium, where does the personal responsibility for your own actions come in? The answer and it didn't really make that much sense to me, the answer came back is the taxpayers should be paying equally the cost of incarceration, because it's a societal issue, and if you take this health insurance out and shift it, then it changes that. But I'd like your answer to personal responsibility and what part that plays in this, and you unfortunately only have about a minute to do that.
Well, I'd just jump in real quick that, if one takes that premise, then I suppose we should go to socialized medicine, because that burdens everybody equally. Look, that's not what the insurance companies are doing. The insurance companies are in there, to ensure that, actuarially speaking, they're a profit-making business. They should have the responsibility to maintain coverage on individuals, whether they're in the jail or out of the jail. It seems likely. They've exempted themselves from that policy in a very not so subtle way to ensure that they can collect premiums from families whose members are incarcerated and not pay any benefits.
I know, Reed, that you have an answer. We're going to have to wait a second for it. We have to take a commercial break. So stay with us. We'll be back with more of the county seat. When we return, we'll wrap up our thoughts and our conversation on insurance for inmates, or insurance coverage while people are incarcerated in county jails. We'll be right back in just a minute. Come to Kane County and make your own cheaping adventure today.
Kick it.
Native Americans called it the land of the sleeping rainbow. It's a place of unparalleled enchantment where history, splendor, and industry meet. We call it Sevier County. Experience the Paiute Trail by ATV. Explore 7 national parks, all within a few hours' drive. Gaze down at the world from an entirely new perspective. Join us in Sevier County and discover real Utah. Come, explore the Paiute Trail and beyond.